let's talk about the Mag 7. That's right, the Magnificent 7 stocks. Some of them have been in trouble lately, and I want to go one by one through each stock and kind of break down what's happening, how we should be thinking about it if you're trading, or if you should be preparing to exit, take a small profit or small loss. Let's dive into it. All right, the first Mag 7 stock that I want to look at is Nvidia. Nvidia has been on a tear lately, but I want to point your attention to something that it's done that it hasn't done in a long time, which could signal trouble for the semiconductor sector. You can see here where Nvidia typically trades above the 10 and the 20-day moving average, usually bounces off of it, hasn't had a break since last year. However, recently, we got our first break right here down the 10 and 20-day moving average. The second break happened right here, but this is the break that really concerned me. This was a major sell-off with huge volume that took Nvidia down below the 50-day moving average. And when the stock breaks below the 10, 20, and the 50, it typically signals a change in the trend. And you can see where the stock just started to really kind of roll over and stop going up. Now, since then, at the time of this recording, you can see that Nvidia has had 3 good days, or at least 2 good days. And as of right now, before the market opens, we have recovered that big sell-off candlestick that we had on Friday. But the question is there a slowdown or something happening in the tech sector where the big boys like Nvidia are starting to sell off? Because before that, AMD sold off, Intel sold off, but you're like, Intel's not a market leader. AMD was second runner up. But now that the market leader is starting to turn, I think it should get your attention, and we should start to ask, okay, what's going on with the semiconductor sector? Or is there some type of projection that the AI hype may for now be at its peak until we start to see more real results? Let's take a look at the second Mag 7 stock, which is Tesla. So Tesla just reported earnings, but let's just take a look at what it's done before reported earnings. So let's take all these moving averages off. And if you look at Tesla, so far it was holding this 160 level. If you snap this line all the way back across, you can see where the 160 level has been pretty much good support for Tesla. It's been hanging out around that level. This was a little bit of a scary break that Tesla had right here, because it broke the 160 level and went all the way down to 140. That's a 20-point drop. And so my thoughts was the next level that we'll see Tesla at potentially for support is this 110 level. Good news is they announced earnings, and as of right now, the stock is trading at 163 pre-market. So pre-market, it'll be back at its 160 level or above it. But the question I have is this going to be an opportunity for people to run for the door who want to exit the stock? Maybe they were able to get back to break even or even a little profit, but I don't know if the earnings pop is going to hold. They missed deliveries. Earnings wasn't really that good. And they kind of made some commitments to build more cost-effective cars. But as long as interest rates stay higher for longer, I still think there's going to be some turbulence because people finance cars, and nobody wants to finance a car at a super high payment right now, especially when inflation is still kind of murky and floating around. Let's take a look at our next Mag 7 stock, which is our good friends Microsoft. So Microsoft, as we see it here, this one's pulled back to a really nice support level. I like that Microsoft pulled right back. It didn't break like the Teslas or the Nvidias did, but it pulled back right to a very prominent support level where you're like, okay, I can get behind Microsoft and take a bullish shot right here. One thing that gives me caution, Microsoft has earnings on April 24th, or April 25th, which is tomorrow after the market closes. And that earnings report, depending on what they say for guidance, it could be good earnings, but it could be bad guidance. You saw that happen to Netflix. Netflix is not a Mag 7 stock, but I just want to throw it in here real quick to make a point. You saw this happen on Netflix where they actually had good earnings, but they didn't like their forecast. And so, boom, the stock got hammered down. So Microsoft, although they could possibly report good earnings, what happens if they don't give us a great forecast? So although I would like to buy this right here, right now, down here, I'm a little cautious of making that purchase ahead of earnings, because earnings is like that X factor that could just totally change the game for the stock and for the initial trade that you thought you were going to be in. Let's talk about our good friends, Apple. I am an Apple supporter. I mean, everything I have is Apple, the computer, the iPad, the phone, etc. However, we can't deny that this Mag 7 stock has definitely been in a downtrend. Now, the good news, though, is that it's been holding around this horizontal support level. So we're forming what's called a wedge pattern. The stock is coming into this wedge pattern, and it's either going to do one of two things. It's either going to break out of the wedge, or it's either going to break down from the wedge. Now, I just got an email that May 7th we're invited to some special Apple event. I think they're going to talk about the refresh on the Mac lineup, but they just refreshed the Mac computers with the M1, M2 chip. Now I guess they're going to refresh it with some new AI chips that may be coming out. I'm not even sure what that means. That means Siri's going to get smarter, because right now she's not the best solution for asking questions. So I don't even know what that looks like. So that event could be a catalyst to take the stock higher. I don't want to count Apple out, because they have a huge user base. They still have the app place, but they're going through a little bit of turbulence right now with being sued and having a monopoly and unfair practices and things like that. But I think once we get through that, the stock goes higher. So could you buy right here? I actually think you could. I think a lot of the bad news is already baked in. And even with the bad news, we're still looking at a multi-billion-dollar company that was once a trillion-dollar market cap company. So I like it down here. You got a sell off from 199 down to 167. That's about 33 points that the stock can move going back up to the top should it get going again. Let's look at our good friends, Alphabet, which is Google. So Google actually held up the best out of the Mag 7. You can see Google, when you put the moving averages on, even if you take the moving averages off, if we just snap a couple lines in here, you can see Google really held up the best as far as when this pullback era happened. Google didn't really pull back much. It just kind of gave back, what, 2-3 points, and is on its way back to the top of the channel. Now, I don't like the fact that it's almost back to the top of the channel where it typically sells off, and then you have earnings report coming up. But if for some reason we can get a push back down to the support level after earnings, I definitely think it'll give us an opportunity to jump in here and be a buyer. Our next Mag 7 stock that actually held up decent, but not as good as Google, Amazon. The reason I say it didn't held up as good is because if you take the top from where it sold off and you come down to right here, this bottom area, you know, Amazon sold off 14 points. I mean, that's a big sell-off, about 7.8%. So it sold off 14 points from the high versus Google only giving back, 2 or 3 points. But if you look at the overall uptrend on this thing, it's still intact. I'd rather take this pullback than take what's happening in Tesla, right? Big difference. Tesla, boom. Amazon, boom. It's in what we call the winner's circle. This is the winner's circle up here. And then down here, we call this the penalty box. And if you know what I'm talking about, when you look at Tesla, the penalty box is down here in the corner, which means the stock has been falling. So just a really fun way to think about if you should buy or sell something, or if it's in the uptrend or downtrend. Is it in the winner's circle, or is the stock in the penalty box? Alphabet, winner circle. Amazon, winner circle. Last but not least, it wouldn't be Mag 7 if we stopped at 6 stocks. Let's look at Facebook, aka Meta. Let's take a look at what Meta is doing. Meta is also, let's just point it out, in the winner's circle up here. I'd be a little cautious though, because Meta is starting to look like Nvidia. Let me go back to Nvidia. See how Nvidia just kind of rounded out and started to roll over? Let's look at Meta. Meta is starting to round out a little bit to me. You can start to see where it possibly could be getting ready to roll over, and earnings could be the catalyst to take it down if earnings aren't good or they don't forecast pretty well. But big picture, if you zoom out, this stock has been on a tear since last year. I mean, this thing has, I mean, let's just do the measurement here. If we pull the measurement out, this stock, if we just take it from 2003, this stock has been on a tear, ladies and gentlemen. So you can see the stock has gained 359%, just ridiculous. 412 point move to the upside. I mean, that is just ridiculous to the upside. This is definitely the Mag 7 winner. I mean, that's a bigger percent return than Nvidia. Well, I think so, maybe, because Nvidia had a crazy return too. Should we measure it? I'll leave that to you for homework. But those are my thoughts on the Mag 7 stocks. We got a lot of earnings coming out this week. I think we got to be cautious going into earnings, because even if we get the pop, some of these stocks have been selling off. And even if we get good earnings but don't get a good forecast, it could spell doom for these stocks, and they could come down even further, giving us a better opportunity to purchase some. Let me know. Are you trading the Mag 7 stocks? Are you holding any of these? Let me know. Are you holding over earnings? Is it time to buy? Are you thinking about selling? I want to hear from you in the comments. Stock market coach and option trader Jason Brown. I'm signing off saying, remember, you never go broke taking a profit.